Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to discuss my proposed study of experiences in multi-tiered systems, specifically understanding student motivation and attendance through qualitative research. I am going to review the agenda. So slide one, we will look over the research proposal. Slide two discusses specification and limitation of topic for research. Slide three discusses research questions. Slide four will have literature review, the relationship between check in, check out, and attendance. Slide five has the attendance, focused tier two MTSS interventions. Slide 6 includes equity, school climate, and student empowerment. Slide 7 discusses trauma-informed care. Slide 8 includes methodology and study design. Slide 9, qualitative research data collection. Slide 10, qualitative research data analysis. Slide 11, ethical considerations. Slide 12, I conclude my study, and slide 13 will include the references I used. So this is the research proposal overview. Basically, I did a qualitative proposal examining student experiences within multi-tiered systems of support known as MTSS. The purpose of the study was to capture student perceptions of multi-tiered systems of support interventions, specifically check-in, check-out, which is also known as CICO. The primary focus was to examine how CICO daily processes influence student motivation to attend and participate in school. So the goal was to foster student self-advocacy, empowerment, and a sense of belonging to improve attendance rates. So the target issue was attendance is a top priority, yet chronic absenteeism remains difficult to resolve within broad tier systems of supports. So the intervention focus was to utilize tier two check-in, check-out with daily check-ins, daily progress reports, and structured adult-student relationships to bridge home-school gaps. The approach I took was a qualitative action research, which allows deep exploration of student-staff relationships, equity factors, and school climate. These are the research questions that I used. I used the qualitative methodology. Question one is, how do students perceive their experiences with multi-tiered systems of support? Question two is, how do students describe its influence on their motivation to attend school? So the significance for these questions is that it focuses on the why behind the chronic absenteeism by incorporating student voice, relational trust, and psychological factors missing from numerical attendance logs. So the relationship between CICO and attendance. So early intervention is very important. So addressing behavioral, academic, and social emotional gaps early through morning check-ins sets a positive tone and prevents further disengagement, ensures students can open up and let you know how their day is going. So you basically get a little temperature check. And if you deem necessary, you can inform the student's teacher or whoever works alongside with the student and just give them a quick overview of like, hey, the student is not doing so well this morning, to kind of cut them a little slack or give them a little grace because they're having a difficult morning to begin with. So tiered framework, tier one targets all students. Tier two supports 10 to 15% of the population needing targeted intervention. And tier three supports is 1 to 5% of the population needing intensive individualized support. So CICO implementation requires daily progress reports and regular adult check-ins and outs with high fidelity. So that just means the student comes into an office or a classroom every single day for about 20 school days, and they check in, get a temperature check, grab a daily progress report, and take it with them for their day and drop off that daily progress report at the end of the day. and they will get a little incentive if they meet their goal, whichever it may be. It may be behavior, it may be right now we are focusing on attendance. So that is our goal, to improve attendance. So if they meet their attendance goal and participation, then they'll earn a incentive. Attendance focused Tier 2 MTSS interventions. So, targeted evidence-based interventions, districts set evidence-based targeted Tier 2 supports like check in, check out to motivate students, establish healthy attendance habits, and support those not succeeding under the Tier 1 universal practices. Um, it is consistent. It has to be consistent. So CEQO functions are regular interventions that serve about 15% of the student population, in which daily progress reports need to be used with fidelity. So they also check in with the adult. Early action. So morning adult check-ins allow staff to intervene as soon as attendance deficits appear, setting a positive tone for the student's day and preventing further academic, behavioral, or emotional gaps. And it is really important to identify the root cause, like why are they missing school? So regular check-ins help staff uncover underlying reasons for attendance issues, allowing schools to use restorative practices rather than punitive measures to resolve challenges. So the equity school climate and student empowerment really has to do with a sense of belonging. So enhancing school climate and building equitable resources combats poor attitudes towards school. Relational impact. So positive student-staff relationships are key motivators. CEQO is the most prevalent Tier 2 intervention across U.S. schools with an 80% like success rates. Um, Staff advocacy. Support staff, they serve as critical advocates, creating community and trust, especially when the home support is limited. So just building, those personal connections with the students, finding out what their interests are, what motivates them to do stuff, and just building that connection allows the student to trust you and creates like just a nice dynamic which students feel understood, feel empowered, or feel accepted and welcomed. So that encourages them to just attend school. Also, it is important to be trauma informed. So it is very important to understand adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs, that impairs their emotional regulation and cognitive function, making trusting adults challenging. So this just means, students who have had really negative experiences, and there's a big, a broad reason or traumatic experiences that will prevent students from engaging or wanting to make connections with staff members. Also, it is very important to be restorative, not punitive. When we are doing check-in, check-outs, the purpose is to build connections, not to push students further away from education and then, kind of motivating them to just not come to school. So it is very important that we use non-punitive MTSS interventions to reduce disproportionate disciplinary harm towards socioeconomically disadvantaged students. And like I said, if we are punitive in our check and check out processes, students aren't going to feel welcomed. They're not going to want to connect with a staff member, and it's not going to be an effective practice. And data fidelity. So combining early warning tracking systems with consistent non-punitive PBIS delivery ensures program efficacy. So I'm going to discuss research methodologies. There is the qualitative methods, which qualitative research methods involve collecting and analyzing non-numerical data to explore the underlying motivations, perceptions, and behaviors of individuals. In a research proposal, qualitative methods will be utilized to gain in-depth insights into consumer preferences, attitudes, and experiences related to MTSS and check out. The quantitative method is basically numerical. Um, it involves collecting and analyzing numerical data to qualify relationships, trends, and patterns. In this research proposal, quantitative methods were not used. Moving on further, discussing the methodology. So qualitative action research case study design is what I used, and that explains non-numerical data such as feelings and perceptions. It also aligns with identifying common themes around student-staff connections, trauma-informed care, and empowerment perceptions. Moving on to data sources. So qualitative research data collection and sampling. I used one-on-one semi-structured interviews in a quiet counseling office, document analysis of daily progress reports, observational field notes, basically looking for nonverbal cues, body language, and peer interactions. Sampling study. I had a purposive sampling of 15 to 20 students with chronic absenteeism who are currently receiving CECO, check in, check out. And it's important to use triangulation. So I cross-analyzed interviews, daily progress report logs, and observations to ensure validity and eliminate any biases from my research or the researcher. Moving on to qualitative research analysis. So research suggests there is a four-step inductive process, which is organizing data, reading, coding by looking for common themes between all sources, and basically synthesizing what was read. So first is the organization. So basically transcribing audio, looking for common themes between all sources. Next, you will read all of the student documents while tracking direct notes on document itself to help with organization. Um, After that, the third step will consist of coding, which I used NVivo, or finding common themes and categorizing them on a matrix to help with organization. And the last step is to synthesize everything that was read. So now I'm moving on to ethical considerations. When working with vulnerable populations, heightened ethical awareness and safeguards are necessary when conducting action research with participants. So it is important to be aware of the informed consent and assent. So that means we're going to retrieve written parental consent, student assent prior to the study, present all consent documentation in study-friendly, age-appropriate language, and provide written and verbal consent forms in the family's native languages, and utilizing district translation support when needed. We also have to be anonymous and provide protection for data. So I removed all of the direct identifiers like student names, school names, location details, things like that. I also assigned aliases to participants and store anonymized daily progress reports in secure password protected cloud storage. Next, protection from harm and psychological safety is of highly important. So I embedded CECO procedures during existing Tier 2 support times to prevent peer stigmatization and preserve instructional time. So I don't want to intimidate or embarrass a student. Other students it shouldn't be common knowledge that they are receiving these supports. Also, conducting adult check-ins and checkouts discreetly to maintain privacy and build a safe, trusted connection. And lastly, the research bias and transparency. I maintain honesty with coworkers and research collaborators. I utilize reflexive journaling and data triangulation across multiple sources. So just having collaboration, communication with my colleagues is very important, and sharing the details of this research study, but also keeping certain things anonymous, it helps the study a lot better. So in conclusion, student experiences are very important. So qualitative research examining students' experiences and motivations within multi-tiered systems of support, specifically check in, check out. Um, qualitative data, the student perceptions and the relational dynamics formed through SECO process of daily check-ins and check-outs present valuable information that only qualitative data could provide. Quantitative data would not be able to measure these perspectives, student perspectives. And student feedback is a high indicator of the success or, of MTSS supports. So the only way to move forward and get a true research finding is to include the voices of the participants being studied. So it is very important to gather that feedback to make necessary changes if there needs to be. And we should always be student-centered, have a student-centered approach. So this study focuses on fostering student-centered approaches and strategies to enhance a supportive, welcoming, equitable, and inclusive school environment. And here are my references. So there are 2 pages attached. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.